we decided to try to go paperless for the most part. And so just as we start, and again, this is protocol that we're going to be following from now on, and that's to start off the meeting by stating that we would like to honor the 4 nations on whose traditional land we live and learn, the Sinaiaks, Tanaha, Sepwemik, and Silks. And we respectfully acknowledge Indigenous people, recognizing our students come to us with Aboriginal ancestry from a variety of ancient homelands. So we have the agenda. Does anybody have any items to add to the agenda? If not, a motion to approve. Elmer, second by Jeff. Discussion, all in favor, carried. We have the minutes of October 7th. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve. Moved by Elmer, second by Bill. Discussion, all in favor, carried. So first, we'll move to the superintendent's administration report, and Mike, if there's items you'd like to highlight.
For sure, and in fact, I highlighted them. So for those of you that are following along electronically, I've got 10 items I'd like to highlight, then as always, I'm happy to talk about any others you might want some clarity or understanding around. First off, just to advise that we're continuing, and this is pretty much every 2 weeks, holding a teleconference with Jason Glue, the district manager for Grant Construction, who works out of Vancouver, and continue to work on our deficiencies and warranty items. Most recently, though, a discussion regarding the siding review that's taking place, and so we're expecting in the next couple of weeks to be bringing forward a plan that looks like what they're going to do around the outside of around RSS and Begleyview in terms of getting back up and having a better look at the siding. There's been some cracking of our nice big red panels and ongoing issues with the aesthetics of the building. And so they've been excellent in terms of dealing with the contractor and the supplier, and they want a closer look. So we'll see that happening in the next little while. It will not interrupt school, and they've been really great about keeping us well informed at this point with what's going on with that. Item number 6, just noting that at this time I was approving the out-of-town trip, and of course the trip took place, the WE Day trip took place already. 32 students, Tara Johnson, Todd Hicks, and Megan Chandro were down at BC Place, Rogers Center, for what was, I understand, was an outstanding WE Day presentation. Again, thanks to Megan for once again securing funding through Columbia Basin Trust. The expense for that program for students was over $75 for 2 nights, 3 days, travel all the way there and back. Due, of course, to the funding through what Megan secured through Columbia Basin Trust. And just a reminder that selection process, we've now been 3 years in a row. Columbia Park Elementary, Begleyview Elementary, and now Arrow Heights Elementary have gone along with high school students. And now a district committee is going to get together, because this is clearly continuing and gaining momentum, and start talking about how we want to work going forward in terms of offering opportunities, because right now there is a selection process and an application process students go through that commit them to some work before and after the trip, so it's not just a trip and a one-shot deal. A number of items in my report this session talking about the new framework for enhancing student learning, and noting that there is, and you will see when we get to the achievement contract, there have been substantial changes to legislation around the reporting processes, and that we are currently in a transition year, and we'll be hearing a little bit more about that as we come along, as we actually work through this agenda, but in general terms, looking at how the accountability framework provincially is changing to talk more about enhancing student learning, and there's an interesting process, an engaging process taking place throughout the year. As I say, we'll talk about it a little bit more on this agenda as well. Item number 15, I wanted to note that there was a way to an excellent session with my regional superintendent's group, and on a Thursday, Friday, held in Vernon. Once again, we had Dee Goodman, the Director of Accountability with the Ministry of Ed, talking about the shared framework for enhanced student learning. Our regional group is looking for ways to run support systems through our region, knowing that the ministry is providing a little bit of guidance and support in that way, but getting together, we've got an excellent region in that regard for work. So more support coming in that venue. Item number 18, I wanted to just note the 3 things, the 3 big last spikes, because they're now complete. So we've got barrier work has been we were trying to figure out how many years, for getting into decades. Been running the last spike tournaments with lots of support. The grade 8 tournament on a Saturday already took place at the end of September, and then both the junior last spikes, which had 16 girls teams here, And then the senior last spike, which had 12 senior teams here competing, brought a whole lot of athletes to Revelstoke, and always a huge success. So he starts out on Friday, Saturday, and we had our first co-event as well, because first we had Shane Poison here on Friday night in the Performing Arts Center, and also had volleyball going on in the gym. And I was there, saw it, it worked. I thought it worked really quite well. It's a pretty exciting place to be that evening. Also, item number 25, noting that last Wednesday, when many of us were away and unable to attend and congratulate champions of literacy, we had 6 staff members recognized, along with 8 others, 14 individuals and groups recognized at the Champions of Literacy celebration. And you would have seen that notice come out. Thanks, probably David. It was probably circulating around with you, but there was a nice, announcement sent out in advance from Tracy Spanier, and then a celebration last Wednesday evening at the Seaball Center at Begbiew Elementary, and recognizing Yvette Lane, Nancy Jensen, Laurie Henshaw, Allison Just, Jeff Wilson as our nominations, and Yvette Astra, sorry. Item number 30, I've got a few more to go. I collaborated with in terms of the more to do with the new curriculum, collaborated with the principals, and a bit of an update on this one. Some time ago, we got together to discuss first of what we would hope to be a series of afternoon sessions, bringing teachers together to talk about what they're currently doing in terms of this implementation year. And now the session is actually planned and set for now November 26th, an afternoon session with representation from each of the schools along elementary and secondary, along with principals. Item number 35, I said in here that I met with Jennifer Walney, because we meet all the time, weekly, and Claire Maltby. We did not just do this together, but we talked separately about bringing, once again, highlighting the sexual orientation and gender identity policy, and decided to send it out in a signed memo in much the same way that we commit to other things, the harassment policy being one that annually goes out, signed by Jennifer and myself, indicating to the district our commitment. And we used a similar model to send out sexual orientation and gender identity policy, and included Claire Maltby in that, so that memo went out, along with, at the same time, our pride flags, which went out to make sure that our pride flags are visible in the entrance to all of our buildings, and I can confirm for you now they all are. They all are there. And in fact, Megan Chandro asked yesterday during Safe Spaces Committee meeting, I think, texted me asking if we would be interested in larger signs for the schools, and I committed to that at that point. They said yes, we would absolutely be doing that. So those stickers will be replaced with something a little bit bigger as well. Item number 40, attended the Junior Dragons Den presentation at Revelstoke Secondary, and this Performing Arts Center is such a nice venue for this kind of thing. So that Sean Aqualine spoke on behalf of the Dragons Den program, which is due to the work of Kevin Dorius and Community Futures. Kevin came to see Greg Kenyon and myself and Jeff Colvin early spring last year, in anticipation of being able to offer this program. It is not an inexpensive program to run. It's a very healthy financial commitment, which he was able to secure funding through Columbia Basin Trust, and then present it to students. So I think our date, and I've got it in there, it's December 4th that the students are encouraged to get involved in that for our local competition, then on to a regional competition, on to a provincial competition. And there's money prizes that are directed to education. If they win, it's education, dollars only. And finally, and I know this will come up both from attendees Bill and Alan later on, but we did attend the BCSTA Administrative Education first annual liaison meeting in Richmond. It's not the first time the groups have got together, but under this mandate and with this direction, it was a healthy day. It was an excellent day of discussing curriculum implementation, and also a fair bit of discussion around accountability frameworks and financial accountability reviews. So,
thanks, Mike. So questions or comments for Mike on any items? Maybe I'll start. If you could go just to number 8. And Bill and I were at a meeting on Friday night, and the Deputy Minister of Education, Dave Bing, spoke, and one of the things that he indicated is that with the provincial government, youth mental health is one of their priorities, and what they've been doing is having interministerial meetings with the deputy ministers from health, social services, education, other sectors that provide services for youth, just to make sure that there's more coordination and services developed. And so that conference call will tie right in with what is going to be a provincial direction. And then if you could go to number 20. And just a reminder for any trustees who are available, School District 27 Caribou Chilcotin is bringing a whole contingent of people here this Friday morning to see what we're doing in Revelstoke. And so they want to, Mike and I are meeting them at 8:30, and we're going to be touring Big Review, RSS, the Neighborhood Learnings with theater, gymnastics, and childcare hub. And then they're bringing their mayor, superintendent, board chair, a few trustees, and a few staff people. I think they have about 8 or 9 coming. And so any trustees who are available to participate, the agenda is available, and the more of us that can help show them around, the better. And then 37, and this is with Michelle being here, because she mentioned it last time, and just pleased to see that we are hosting the practicums. And I think after the meeting last time, Michelle indicated that it's fantastic having students, young teachers coming to Revelstoke to do the practicums, and so I'm really pleased to see that taking place. And then if we just go to future dates, just to note that we are going to have to cancel our November 18th board meeting. Leslie, Jeff, and I are all unavailable that evening for a variety of reasons. And so our next scheduled meeting will be December 9th, and what will happen is in November, if there is some urgent business that needs to be conducted, then we will call a special board meeting for that purpose. But on the 18th, it's Bill, not that we don't trust you, but you're not born. So those are my comments. Yeah. Those are my comments on Mike's report. Again, if there's any other questions or comments on the superintendent's report, it's been a busy time. Jeff?
Number 12. It's adult learning, and we had a discussion.
Oh, yes.
With the college on that.
Yes, yeah.
And RSS might do something with the grade 11 and 12, with the grade 11 and 12 courses, with that, what kind of...
Well, what VR is exploring is, again, you hear this regularly, the conversation in town about the Okanagan College being unable to continue to offer the full complement of adult basic education courses. And so, yeah, you need
This
to
is
go,
important.
yeah, for sure, you knew that was coming.
Yeah, we knew that's
Yeah.
coming from school.
Yeah. So yes, what we're doing is looking at, because otherwise the students, if they're not being serviced over at the college, then their only other choice in Revelstoke is to come to us. And that's not the first choice. So I'm working with BR right now on what we would be able to do to help out.
So would we get you the FTE equivalent for those?
The funding really wouldn't be much of an issue for us. No, but there's a potential for a low piece of funding.
Because it's just a few.
It's only undergraduated students and only a few. Yeah, if it's students that are requiring upgrading, they're graduated, then they're not funded anyway.
Well, are you thinking of those students participating in classes at RSS?
We have had that model, yeah. We've used that model. For students, for example, we had a biology 12, a chemistry 12, courses that are very difficult to do online, or to do, we have had that,
Thank you. Any other questions about Leslie?
I had one about the child and youth mental health and substance use budget planning section number 5. You mentioned it further down, but
Yeah.
I just wondered sort of what's the ballpark budget for it?
$75,000 over 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had a few others, but I think the only one I really want to ask about is number 41, the positive relationships program. Can you tell us a little more?
Oh, sure. Actually, I just met with Travis again today. That is a result of a grant application that Yan Ping Wong, the principal of Begbie Elementary, completed, and it was to the it's the proceeds of crime dollars, and they are targeted to programs in the province that are addressing violence against women or social, or in quotes, other social issues. And so the grant application originally was for a maximum of $10,000 is you could apply for. Yan Ping did an excellent job of describing the kind of programs she wanted for Begbie Elementary and secured $20,000. And so that contract is being implemented starting, actually Travis started last week.
Is that through an organization called Clear Positive Relationships or something out of California?
No, this is strictly BC Justice dollars, yeah. It flows through the ministry, the money is coming to us through the Ministry of Justice, and it is proceeds of crime dollars.
I go look at it, and that's in my.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I actually like to make a motion that the board send either letters of thanks or congratulations to the Me Day organizers.
You bet,
That would
yeah.
be Tara, Megan, and Todd.
Yeah,
And also Barry Rourke and anybody that helped him with the volleyball tournament.
for sure.
And then to the recipients of the Champions of Literacy.
Yeah.
in our district.
Thanks, Bill. Is there a second for that? Elmer, further discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. So next we move to the achievement, this is wow.
Sure.
We're gonna go to the achievement
All right,
contract.
yeah, you bet. Okay, and I might, I'll toggle through a little bit of this. So, but to begin with, the cover memo was to remind, well, actually, I like this, I wouldn't have to wear my glasses if I just read that.
Yeah.
To remind people, I referenced earlier, remind trustees that reference the changes to the accountability framework in the province. So this year, during the 15-16 year, the requirement of boards to complete achievement contracts and submit them to the ministry has been lifted, or is actually no longer there in a change in the legislation as we transition into something else. I just described the transition process there in your memo to describe the partnerships that the groups that are involved in the consultation around what that reporting process should look like, because it has far-reaching implications in terms of how schools plan as well. It's not just our district planning. However, given that this year we're not required to have an achievement contract, I quite like it, and I like having it to measure our success and share our success, and then look for areas of improvement. So that's attached to your agenda as well, and I'll walk you through a little bit of that, knowing that although the process may change slightly, the intention of maintaining goal areas and tracking that progress will remain the same, depending on it. Might be on a slightly different cycle in the future. And I want to acknowledge that as the principals send their school plans into me, and I pick at them and send them back, they did a great job of picking at this for me when I sent it to them a month ago and said, I'm about to take this to the board, and I got a lot of feedback, so it was much appreciated. So this format is similar to the one that we've used for the last 2 years. Starts with our mission, which of course is updated to include our new mission statement, mission and vision statements, and then just provides a little bit of background and context throughout, and a bit of an overview on pages 3 and 4 in terms of our where we've been with our 3 goal areas and improving reading achievement and school completion, and of course probably our primary goal, social, emotional health and wellness. It also provides a little bit of background in terms of the composition of the students in our district, including of course the total numbers, and then the numbers that are identified as with any kind of special need, ranging from gifted to learning disabled. And then of course our Aboriginal population as well identified in here. A breakdown of our staff, and a note in the bottom of page 4 referencing the new teacher mentoring project, which is taken off again this year, and I mentioned at our last meeting we're up to 23 participants, and assigned
24
25, 24.
24, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year we went down to the seminar. I said 23. It didn't sound right in my head. It's hard with no notes. So I got to make this stuff up as I go. Thanks. I'm glad I'm sitting this way though. But it does speak to the youth of our district, and that change in demographics for the last couple of years. Present company, Bob excluded. Working on to our first goal area. Oops, did I jump ahead too? I did. There we go. Our first goal area, and you'll recall a couple of years ago we reordered them, not to say what was most important, but we really wanted to have, because it wasn't really set up to say what's most important, but we really wanted to say supporting students' health and well-being is our primary responsibility, our primary goal area, because nothing else happens if those things are not looked after. So we continue to track data in 3 areas: our provincial satisfaction surveys, our MDI, and our EDI. So these targets refer all the way through. The 4 targets refer to them. There's 2 that I want to highlight, and I'm just going to get out of this and into this, so I can just zoom in a little bit on them here. This is at the top of the page, referencing the charts. Now these are lifted straight from our middle years development instrument at grade 4 and grade 7, and that's the overall tracking of social, emotional health and well-being. And a reminder that those are based on those 5 asset areas that are through research indicative of healthy development. Okay, and then jumping on to the increased numbers of adults, the intermediate and secondary students report being connected with adults at school. So we've been tracking this for a number of years. There's the last three sets of data there for your review, both in the satisfaction survey and then also through the MDI. So if you look at the top chart, that's referring to the percentage of students that they're connected to at least to at least 2 or more adults in the school. At the grade 4 and grade 7 levels, this year, and we're not quite sure where we're feeling about the reporting that the MDI is using this year. They are using last year they just told us where our students were at. This year the report is actually saying where our students are at and also giving an overall picture to say where is the whole province at. However, we have been proud and continue to be proud of the connectedness with adults at grade 4 and grade 7 and indicative of our children, our students at all levels, the connectedness at school, in the community, and at home, which you can see roughly in the numbers in there. And if you are going to take a notion of comparing it to the province or comparing it to the rest of the province, our students and our children are really well connected at school and within their neighborhoods and within the community. And of course at home. Okay, so that's that overall chart. We continue to, and this is not for you to read, but this is for our references, and this is where the principals really helped me out a lot, or helped me out and helped me out, because this is our to-do list. These actions become the things that are guiding the work that we're doing. So when we're talking in there about what kinds of things we're doing to develop physical fitness, to enhance mental, social, emotional abilities, those are the things that we've listed. Now we don't want them in there if we're not doing them. So that's where, and then we also, of course, are adding things all the time. So that's where new programs should be reflected and programs we're no longer doing or initiatives taken out. It's 2 pages of actions for that particular goal. And then we're on to the increasing students' reading achievement. We continue to track the FSA at this point, but more importantly, we're using our benchmarks and our GORTs to track our students' reading and reading levels. We continue to meet our targets, which has always been to ensure that 90% or more are reading at that grade 3, grade 7. We're benchmarking grade 3, grade 7, and grade 9, and then tracking at that level. But you can see we are doing our 5s and 6s in there as well. But it's the big benchmark targets are 3, 5, and 3, 7, and 9. And once again, in the same with goal number 1, there's our list of actions, which is really our to-do list, and a reference to say what all are we doing to achieve that goal, and that's the one that needs constant and annual review. Finally, goal 3, increasing the number of students who graduate, and I keep going with this, and I think probably as we move into a slightly different reporting process, we may choose some different language. We have been at or around the 90% success rate for school completion for a number of years, which is significantly higher than the 67 or 68 that was 25 years ago when the district first said we want it to be better than this. So we've been a whole lot of years at 90%, which seems to be around what we consider to be a reasonable success rate, given that we continue to track those 10% of students that do include students that are not going to graduate because they're on a modified program. It also includes some students that aren't going to graduate with us because they're international students and they go back or they move up to Alberta. So we're still doing a good job of ensuring we're tracking those students. But the language may change slightly because we have an outstanding completion rate that we should be proud of. We track, in that regard, continue to track the student transitioning from grade 11 because, of course, that's the step in. If you're getting out of grade 11 into 12, you're set up to graduate. And you can see that rate has remained relatively stable, and we expect it should because we're pretty tough on our grade 11s, letting them into grade 12, essentially, to say it's your graduation year because they can take 6 years. And then, again, there's our I'll call it the smorgasbord of to-dos and lists that we need to be monitoring to make sure we're getting that work done. And then the report, as always, ends with a little summary of your Aboriginal education and work that's being done in the district, and acknowledging in this piece that we're about to sign our this year we'll be signing our second Aboriginal Enhancement Agreement, and just to acknowledge the work that Ariel McDowell is leading with our Aboriginal Education Committee and that very small but mighty committee that meets on a monthly basis. and continues to make sure that we're hearing from our students, that as we did from a grade 12 student 2 years ago, that I remember when being an Aboriginal student in Revelstoke wasn't cool, but it is now. So it's
You'll
good.
remember that comment for a long time.
I will, I'll repeat it.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike. Any questions or comments from trustees? Leslie?
These reports are really useful. I mean, they tell me more about what's actually going on, I think, in many ways than otherwise I would ever have any idea about. But I spent some time this afternoon, finally figured out where to go on the RSS website to find out exactly what courses are offered at our high school.
Yes,
Because
yeah.
I went onto the ministry website and just,
Yes.
couldn't find it out. So you go to counseling, I think, eventually. to get
Oh,
there.
yes, that's right, yeah, for course selection, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was wondering if in these reports there'd be any way to list the number of courses and the student achievement rate in different courses. How many students are taking which courses? Because I'm really interested in how many of the students who graduate from RSS can go on to post-secondary education in Canada. Because I've heard a couple of stories about people who went into medicine and they had to go to Ireland to get into a med school and these kind of things. And so I'm really interested in looking at the range of courses that different numbers of students at RSS are taking. And, I'm personally interested in whether or not students can take, or do take all 3 of the sciences in 12, or students who are really interested in the arts are taking a whole range of those required courses, or are they moving more into the elective sort of softer areas? So I'm just wondering if there's any way that you could build something like that into these reports. I don't know whether it would be a priority for other people or not, but it sure is one for me.
Yeah, it's important tracking, and the question is whether it would go in a district report, or whether it just, or whether it resides in the school reports. Because currently the starting of what you're looking for is reported in the school-based report, and I'll get that for you. So we roll up content areas to say that in English 8, what is the success rate, fail rate, pass rate, and A and B rate.
Yeah, and that goes all through.
That goes all the way through. Yes.
So
Okay.
So when the RSS gives a report, we get that information in terms of the classes, numbers, grades, etc. The problem, I think, would be to then correlate in terms of, are the students that, say, for example, take all 3 sciences? I don't know if we would have that.
It would be somewhere anecdotal, we can get, yeah.
So I think what would happen is, if you were interested in getting, I'd say, a layer deeper, then we would probably have to give specific questions to grade the principal in terms of what is, we've got the basic data, but if you want to drill deeper, what are the questions, and that would probably help them.
Okay,
Yes.
so is the basic data just listed then as science 10, 11, or 12? Not as biology, chemistry, or physics 10, 11, or 12?
No, fully broken out. So
It
when,
is fully
when the departments at the school are looking at, so Greg has all of that data, the Chem 12 results from last
Right.
year. He's got all number of fails, number of, well, there were
Yeah.
then the level of ABs, that's all broken out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be really interested in.
As you're saying, we would be asking Greg for a little bit of that information, and
Yeah.
give him some work to give it to us.
Well-
Because, it
No,
wouldn't be,
he
he's
does
got
that
it.
anyway, we have that.
Yeah,
Oh,
because,
okay.
That's not extra.
and it's the work of the school planning council, that's the kind of stuff that they review. So it's a good
Right.
question, yeah. And then the other part of your question is about what they're doing. And part of this whole discussion around completion rates is what happens for students when they're out of school. And so, heard it interestingly described lately about the preparation. We ask students if they feel prepared for their education beyond. And they don't know whether they're prepared for education or work like they necessarily. So
No,
there's.
of course, because all they've ever done is gone to school, so it's
Yeah,
really hard for them
yeah.
to judge, and that's why I think.
But there's work to be done there.
It would be useful to have some of the stories
Yeah.
that circulate
Yes, yeah.
have to do with kids getting to university, yes, moving on to U of C or U of A or somewhere, or UBC, and finding that they are completely overwhelmed. That they don't feel by about February of that first year, they slide through the first semester, optimistically, and then it kind of hits them that, oh, their Christmas exams weren't so great, and that their high school preparation, where their grades were maybe all A's or B's, you know, here they're getting C's and D's, and they don't, they're kind of stunned by it. So I'm sort of just interested in that transition to post-secondary education, and I think a year ago I suggested we try to set up some sort of exit level study, you know, tracking people 2 and 5 years later. What are they doing after they graduate from RSS? And we have maybe the education committee. Maybe that's the place for that kind of initiative.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or comments from trustees? Elmer?
Yeah, just curiosity, the gifted students, like, when are they identified? Like, are there a range of ages, or?
Yeah. Primarily though, we identify them in grade 3 and grade 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but then, at that point, what you're doing is testing and saying they meet a criteria for a gifted program. But then we have lots of students that would, well, not lots, but there are students that say, no, thanks, I don't want the program, I'm good. So, yeah, but
So
that's
it
3/4.
is a bit of a testing system, is it then?
Yeah, oh, yes, yeah.
And
Is
who's
there a
It's-
program?
It's a full screen, yeah, it's a full
Is
screen.
it teachers, or is it?
Andrew's likes this a screen,
Okay.
yeah.
But is it a program? I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, you're out of
Yeah.
line.
I am, excuse me.
Yeah.
Also, I was interested there, there was an area of identification with regards to learning about health and wellness, like grades 7 and 10, and I guess a group was convened to go ahead and look at that. Have they arrived at any kind of an action plan on improving those results, or?
You mean, are you referring to the high school students going in and talking to the elementary students about?
No, this was one of the, on the charts,
Yeah.
where it's.
I'll get back to the health and wellness. Here's the health and wellness.
And there was a comment about a group
Oh, yeah,
being convened to.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, you know,
yeah, actually, so what happened with this information in the, with this particular reporting, when we got it in late May of last year, we took it and built a slide deck of discussion slides.
Okay.
And then took that, and this is 2 years in a row, taken that information into classes, and last year we took secondary students in to share the results with the grade 7s.
okay,
Yeah, and that was just, that's the first step in discussing, so what should we do about it, or what do you think about this information?
okay.
Yeah.
Now, Leslie, you had another question or comment?
Oh,
It's the students.
yeah,
I would like to know what the program is.
I will send you the blurb that we put in the newsletter for it, actually, it's a CCAP, and we've got a little blurb that goes out annually, so I will send it right to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments from trustees?
Please send them to me.
Let's send it to
Sure,
everybody.
you bet,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure. Okay, I just, based on the discussion, what I would say, Mike, is that even if this is no longer going to be a ministry requirement, it appears that you enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
we enjoy receiving it.
Good.
And again, the whole purpose of data is how can you use it to make things better for students? So that's the whole focus here, so thank you.
Yeah, good, thank you very much for
Okay.
that.
Yes?
Does ministry have any other thing that you have specific?
Well, there's a few things.
Yeah, there's a couple, yeah, there's a couple. And the ministry was clear, there will be a reporting out process. The ministry's not gonna say, we don't care what you're doing. They're gonna want to still roll up information. It's just they wanted to renew and review that process, that's all.
We don't know yet what it is.
No, because, and we're part of the discussions to help guide what it looks like, yeah, it's a good process.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the report on the organization of classes.
Okay, all right, so the snapshot date this year for the reporting class size is October 15th. The report is due to the ministry on October 30th and is ready to go on the website. We just need to click and say, yes, this is it. We'll submit it officially, and it's a summary of what you're seeing here, and this is a much more reader-friendly version than what we send to the ministry. But it basically outlines, once again, our class size averages at kindergarten, grade 1 to 3, 4 to 7, and then 8 to 12, with what again, it doesn't make sense to roll up the class size average at the high school, which is not a good indicator of the whole system, so we break it out by department because it makes a lot more sense to look at it that way. You can see Bayview Elementary's enrollment came right exactly where expected, 249 students. Arrow Heights is actually, since October 15th, up, I think it's 2 more students right now. If they haven't started already, they're going to. They're at 134, and they're going to go up to 136. Remember, about this time last year, they had just a few over 120 students, so they're up again for the 3rd year in a row. And at Columbia Park Elementary, down a few students due to some moving around, but we had a couple families leave, and that's because we were expecting 200 students at Columbia Park, so district-wide, it's a bit of a wash in terms of balancing. And then at Revelstoke Secondary, you can see the breakout, and I just want to describe a little bit what happens here with the class size averages or with the ranges, with both. There are a few situations where there are really very small classes, and Leslie, you alluded to this earlier in terms of our course selection at the school. We continue to maintain the full complement of courses. So students that want, for example, Calculus 12, there are 2 blocks of Calculus 12, and one of them is very small, and one of them is what I would consider to be like a 21, 22, more reasonable size. They don't all fit in one class. We wind up with a second class. It winds up to be very small. So that's where you'll see that math range, for example, to be 12 to 28, and actually that 12 is referring to an apprenticeship workplace 10 class, which only has 12 students in it. It's only one. There are 12 students. That's a graduation math program, and we would call it the apprenticeship program. If we didn't offer that, those 12 grade 10 students would be challenged to complete the other stream of math, which is more the university stream. And so we do offer that course. We do the same thing in the languages with the French program. There's a very small French class there. If we didn't run it this year, then those students wouldn't have that opportunity to continue on in French. So, and then they're balanced with, as you can see, overall the averages are still working out to be very, very healthy right through. Phys Ed, there's a very small class in Phys Ed, which is related to scheduling, and because we're running into some of these things at the high school, when we get as small as we are, to still being able to offer all the courses, we bump up against those conflicts that say, well, you can't get into that class over there in Chem 12 if you're going to take PE, so we wind up with a very small PE class because kids are going a different direction.
It's interesting to look at demographically over the years, because it wasn't that long ago that we'd be graduating 130.
Yeah.
And then it was 110, and then it was 90.
Yeah.
But now you can see, like this year, for example, if we have 79 leaving grade 12, and then we've got 75 going into grade 8, then we're looking at relatively stable numbers. So it looks like we're sort of leveling off.
We are.
We knew that would have to happen at some point.
Yeah.
As the demographics adjusted when we lost all those high numbers.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can actually see when you go to the lower ones, you can see an 86 and 4, 81 and 1, so there are some higher numbers starting to come back.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Any questions on this report, Bill?
So, Mike, did you say this is part of a report that's required that you have to give to the ministry? But you give it in a different format, that's what you said, right?
It's an online
It's
upload.
probably,
Yeah.
But on that document, do you also have to list the number of kids that are identified as special needs?
Yes.
So could we get that information on this too then?
You can. Yeah.
I think that would be helpful for
Yeah.
trustees to have that number
Yeah,
also.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And when Mike's just nodding, Jeanette's writing it down.
It actually exists. Jennifer and I both have reviewed it, and yeah, it exists. It's just a question of how much information you like. So, yeah.
Jeff?
Oh, I just wondered about the international students, 1 in grade 8. Must be very trusting parents, or.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's a student from Mexico again, and that would be our second or third year of having the Mexican students will come very young. Yeah.
So you can see our enrollment at 922. I was at a meeting of Metro branches 10 days ago or whatever it was, and it's interesting, Surrey is growing. This September they grew by 900 students, so they basically grew by our district this year. And then the other thing that the international education is really big with the Lower Mainland boards, and they said one of the changes that's happening is that it used to be the international students would come for like grade 10 and go back home.
Yeah.
And now what's happening is they arrive in grade 9 and staying right through grade 12.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's made a real impact on staffing to get that balance right in terms of international students, but it's a big in there. And it's good to see, because we never used to have this degree of international students that come to Revelstoke.
Yeah, we like this number, this we didn't have before, so, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Mike? Again, there's more information to follow based on some other questions, but
Yeah.
that's,
How's Kansas City then?
okay. And then the next one, and this is, it should be on the table, and so I'm gonna actually suggest that we change the wording, instead of saying be received, be approved as presented. And so what happened is, after a previous board meeting, we've had a couple of new committees added, we've had a couple of changes made, and so then everybody's been asked for their input, and this is the revised list, and so I would suggest that we make a motion to approve it. Bill, second by Jeff. Any discussion on it? Leslie?
I'm just curious as to why the communications committee meets only in January, February, May, and June.
So they're so lucky.
Pardon?
It doesn't.
It hasn't, the committee hasn't been created yet, and this would be a workload issue. Right, really, in terms of getting committees off the ground, yeah.
So basically it's saying start in January, and at that point you decide to change it,
Yeah.
then so be it.
Yeah.
Okay, then, that's great, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Now, next item is the disposition of surplus schools.
Okay, all right. A couple
Never ending saga.
Pardon, the never ending. That's right. Yeah, so give that introduction, I'll go quickly. The Big Eddy Elementary School site reviewed again, so nothing has changed, we keep, and you know, these come to you, these memos come to you, and then they go on the website, and then we also email all of our friends in the Ministry of Education to let them know that we haven't forgotten this. And this is why, for example, Big Eddy Elementary School, we continue to say at what stage it's at, because the ministry is hoping at some point they'll see some money from us for those. And if we stop reporting because we all know nothing's happening with Big Eddy, then that could be a problem for us at the ministry. So we're keeping them well informed.
Sorry, Albert, you want to jump in with that?
Yeah, Mike, do we have any indication when this vote's gonna take place, like? Big
No.
Eddy? None.
No.
Okay.
The Mount View Elementary site looks really nice there. We're actually referring in here to the work that was taking place over there subsequent to that meeting that Ann and Earl went to with Dean Strachan at the city, who said, you know, you'd be better off in your next RFP if that site was a little more attractive in terms of the old central school and some unknowns about the soil there. So that work actually took place this week. If you've driven by Mountain View, you would see there's some test bits there. That geotech work took place. And then with that work, Graham Farsight will be able to put together the zoning application and complete that process.
Field of dreams.
Well, and a part of, honestly, a part of our discussion, and Earl and I looked at this last week as to how much we wanted actually to dig up, knowing that we do still use that field and we want to be good neighbors. So it's getting repaired. I mean, it was 12 holes we had to dig. It wasn't terrifically expensive to finish it off properly, so we're not into a mud bog in the spring, but that was fully necessary. And then finally, just to let you know, with Mount Bagby, trustees, actually facilities finance next week, we're going to start looking at a process and options around Mount Bagby, so that we prepare that to jump into the public consultation process around what are potentially could happen with the Mount Bagby site.
And maybe just a quick summary. So in terms of the processes that were Big Eddy and Mountain View in particular, you can see all the steps that are involved, and we have done everything we're required to do by when we're required to do, and in some cases what we're waiting for is approval from other levels of government. And the number one factor that's caused slowness, if you wish, is the lack of market activity. We have gone out and looked for interest in the market, and we haven't had that yet. But I guess the saving grace is that we have had successful discussions with the ministry, so that they're not sending us a letter saying, where's our money on a regular basis. Yes. We have that worked on as well. So I think from our end of things, we're managing everything as well as we can, and we'll continue to do so.
Well, just number 29, the rezoning.
Yeah,
Something.
yeah.
What is, what do you have in mind?
That's all the work that you've seen, but except, so the community and the board have all seen all those potential options. And then that was prior to the last RFP. This, in terms of getting the application to the city in for rezoning and subdivision, then the next time we go to RFP, we'll be able to say it's already been approved. Right now, we couldn't say it's been approved, these were all just conceptual notions of what could happen with the site, knowing the city would likely favor the subdivision and rezoning.
And that's what's limiting some of the market interests, is that
Yeah.
we don't have those approvals in place.
Yeah. And finally, just a reminder that the scope of all this work is still taking place within the original context of the whole funding package that came along with the new sites. So we do not have the staff to manage the level of work that's taking place with here. So we've got both Earl Woodhurst and Cooper continuing within the project. And then others like Grant Farstad and others that are providing that background work. We knew we didn't want to be land developers. It's a terrific amount of work, so, yeah.
Leslie?
With respect to number 31, the heritage issue, has there been any discussion about the fact, or the possibility, that the existing heritage designation may be so restrictive that it puts off developers? Has anybody raised that? Have any of the people put in proposals or?
No one has put in proposals, but it was topic of discussion when the board made a decision to do that. But we heard really clearly from the community that it was important that that site be designated heritage before we disposed of it.
Right.
And so, given that we knew that was going to come along with some things, that was discussed and on balance decided that we needed to do that.
And we worked with the Heritage Commission at that time, and I remember we had a meeting down here with Mike Giovanni and others. We brought in somebody from Victoria, I believe it was, and the reality is that when you have a building that was maybe 100 years old, that if a developer did come in with the heritage designation, there would be could be very costly in terms of once you get into renovations and the changes in code. But that's I guess the reality of working with the heritage building.
A very small amount of kind of reading I've done about this sort of suggests that there are different levels of heritage. I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. Conforming to heritage requirements. That a document can be written that requires the building be maintained, but that everything inside the building, including the windows and so on, could be changed. And I don't know how the wording of our document goes, but I'm just wondering if it's possibly
That's an area
overly restrictive, because it's a very handsome exterior of the building, but I can imagine that it would cost a huge amount of money to redevelop it, maintaining, for instance, the windows that now exist, but if one were able to change certain things, I don't know if,
we can get that
I can get
information.
yeah.
Bill?
And I think that's fairly typical to how things happen in areas. I'm thinking of Victoria, where some of the buildings downtown there, they were declared, and I'm not sure, I don't know the process how they were declared heritage, but what the basic thought is that the facade of the building is maintained. And
Yeah,
inside, it's
yeah.
gutted, turned into whatever they want, based on what the facade looks like on the outside, but that's basically what happens. And things like
Yeah.
the windows, of course, old windows, they're gonna be replaced, but they need to fit the heritage sort of aspect of the facade of the building and stuff.
I'm just,
That's not unusual.
I
That's
have
how it's
looked
done.
at the heritage document regarding this, and I just can't remember, so it was about a year ago, less than that. But I looked at it, I can't remember how specific it is about individual parts of the building.
I can include a little bit of that in our next update.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda is the Aboriginal Education Advisory Committee minutes of October the 1st. And Mike, is there anything that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, we do, particularly the work of the enhancement agreement, because that is their major work this year. They're also noting that they've got dates that are upcoming that they did not include at that point. They're for the open house sections on the next page. Yeah. There are, there we go. Working sessions on November 5th. There are continued consultations around the enhancement agreement. And I also wanted to note the plaques in the Performing Arts Center, because my name was mentioned in the notes.
Okay,
No, just to remind that we did put that, we put that, the mural that had 121 pieces of student art on it just outside the Performing Arts Center. And then at that time, when the mural went up, Lisa Kinsella Sykes actually at that time wrote a nice little piece around how that artwork came to be. And then we waited before we purchased that because we wanted the Performing Arts Center sign at the same time. So the sign up and the Performing Arts Center sign went up now, and now that'll be added to that area in there as well. And finally, the snub nose, the sturgeon nose canoe is about to be hung at the entranceway at RSS as well. And the hold up there is they're trying to figure out a way to hang it and then be able to lower it so that there's a little bit more of an interactive display. So it's not just up and out of sight. So two really great legacy projects from last year.
any questions on the minutes? If not, a motion to receive. Jeff, Leslie, discussion, all in favor, carried. And then we go to the Disciplinary Advisory Council meeting minutes of October 7th, and Leslie, any areas you'd like to highlight?
No, this looks fine to me.
Okay. Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah. No, the accelerated reader program has been going on for about 15 years, and a couple of schools have changed.
Yes, and yeah.
40-book challenge at Arrow Heights and the Columbia Park, the Book Explorer. Does that serve the same function or better?
And that was the intention. That discussion came up, and Lakeview staff and parent group are really still very supportive and enjoying the way the accelerated reader program works. And we had supported it as a district resource. So, which is why I got a little bit of attention when they changed. You wouldn't normally hear if the school was kind of changing a little bit of direction of the program, but this one was a district-wide. And yes, exactly, with the principals and the staff felt that if they're not going to do accelerated reader, what are they going to do to promote reading? And that's where you got the two other programs that those two schools are now experiencing with, are now experimenting with.
Are these improvements then, or they think? Or?
I think they are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's different, it's changed, and yeah. Promoting the same notion of enjoyment and enhancing reading. Yeah.
Okay, no, very good. This is, again, Bruce pre-warned that this would be happening, so this is good stuff that's going on.
It's good stuff.
Okay, any further comments or questions on the minutes? Okay, if not, a motion to receive. Leslie, second by Elmer. Discussion, all in favor? Carried. Okay, now we can.
Actually, we can't yet because that's just correspondence, so we're going to go into some reports. Yeah.
Okay, so trustee reports. We have the provincial council meeting of October 23rd and 24th.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. And actually, I'm also going to report the highlights of two meetings that I went to last week just before that. The first one was a liaison meeting between the BCSTA and the Ministry of Education, which arises out of the memorandum of understanding, that's right, I have the right term right, that was signed over a year ago now, or about a year ago. A commitment by both parties to make sure they met at least yearly to discuss a number of issues. And so, of course, at this meeting, there were board chairs, there were other trustees, there were superintendents, there were some secretary treasurers at that meeting, and a whole raft of ministry staff and DCTF staff. And in the end, the deputy minister was there, and so was the minister, so we had a chance to meet him. The new minister, Michael Bernier, who seems like quite a nice guy. I'm not quite sure where he comes from or even why.
John.
I mean,
okay.
You know, on his thoughts of education, because he really didn't say much to us, but he certainly seems to, I would say, have set a tone in the relationship between BCSTA and the ministry that I have to say is quite different than what we saw with Fassbender when he was the minister, but we'll see how that all unfolds. So at that meeting throughout the day we got, and Mike has already mentioned some of these, and these things are at the stage that they're beginning to roll out, but there's still lots of work to be done on them, and that of course is the curriculum implementation plan, which is still waiting for further details as to how that's going to all take place over the next year or so. Mike also referenced the framework for enhanced student learning and the fact that they're not going to be required to do an achievement contract, but there will be other reporting that has to be done, and that's where it's also included student assessment, right, and the discussion that will take place about how report cards are going to be done, which I think is going to be a very interesting discussion. And we also talked a lot about financial accountability, and of course, either the ministry, or I think it's the Attorney General, or maybe it's the Ministry of Finance, have audits going on within the ministry. So I don't think we're going through any here right now, are we?
No.
But it could be that we're faced,
Unless there's some surprise.
it could be that
No,
we're faced
no,
with
sorry.
financial audits on some of our data and that sort of thing. And so there was quite a bit of explanation about that. And it's too bad Bruce wasn't there, because it was really stuff that he would have loved to hear. You know, after a while, you listen to auditors, your eyes sort of glaze over. I didn't say that, did I? Okay. Anyway, that was a very good meeting. One of the things that I wanted to point out, that one of the statements that was made at that meeting, that, and Alan helped me, I believe it was the Conference Board of Canada that recently came out with a report that said that overall in the world, BC, not Canada, but BC is number 3 in the world as to how they rated the performance of their education system. And a lot of people turned that around and said, but yeah, number 1 in the English-speaking world, because Japan and Finland are 1 and 2. Well, I thought
But
that
the
was
other
interesting, it's something to
sort
be
of-
celebrated.
And just the other interesting thing with that is that Dave Bing, the deputy minister, was recently on a trip to Japan, and the education minister said we never meet with individual provinces, we just do things on a national level, but we are impressed with what's going on in BC, and so we want to meet with you. And so Dave Bing and ministry staff, the contingent, had a very productive meeting with the sort of Department of Education in Japan, because they want to know what we're doing that is causing our success.
Right.
So that was very positive.
And something that's not said far enough as to how successful our system actually is. The next day, there was a BCSTA meeting with board chairs, and Alan was there and I was there as the designate for Alan, as Alan was there as part of the directors of the BCSTA. And again, it was a very good day, actually a learning day, because we had sessions on conflict of interest, which we went through a bunch of scenarios on whether or not you were in conflict of interest. And as the BCSTA always says, if you're not quite sure, contact them. We had, again, discussions about financial accountability, and that was from Malcolm Gaston, who's the Assistant Auditor General for BC, and Jason Reed, who works with him in that ministry department. We also talked about conflict resolution. That was interesting. These were people that came in and gave us information. The one thing is they were all too short, because they were all crammed into one day. And then interesting tips for dealing with the media, David. We got lots of good stuff.
Just the one in terms of conflict of interest, the point that was made is it's not a bad thing to have a conflict, it's how you address it, because it's very common to have a conflict of interest. And so it's just a matter of how do you handle it and what is a conflict of interest. And they got into a lot of scenarios, and all boards and all councils deal with conflict of interest. So it's just giving some tips on how to deal with it when it does arise. Leslie?
Go ahead.
Are these is this the origin of the documents that Alan sent us?
Yes.
Some of it, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
what-
thought they were really
Yeah,
good.
so what happened for last week is that Bill is our provincial councillor, he's designated, and so these meetings were tied in with provincial council, and because I'm on the BC School Trustees, there's supposed to be a spot for Revelstoke, and so what I said is, Bill, you're down there anyway, would you mind going to these meetings to get an extra seat for Revelstoke, and he was graciously went, so that was great.
A lot of this stuff, as I said, there's more information to come, more follow-up, even maybe more work for us, the trustees at this table to do, but all of that will unfold as it should, or come out as it should. So then I'll take you to the actual provincial council meeting, which happened the Friday night, and the all-day Saturday. Again, we had a presentation from David Bing, who's the deputy minister, and again, Michael Bernier was there, which was nice of him to show up. He was on in a bit of a rush because he had to leave that night to go somewhere.
Prince George.
Prince George,
Yeah,
yeah.
10 o'clock flight to Prince
Yeah.
George.
But just to go over to some of the highlights of that meeting, the BCSTA is currently beginning its process of developing its next year's budget, so we'll be getting more information on that, and that will flow back to me, and then I'll get whatever information or feedback that I need to get to you as the provincial council, and then It's not the AGM?
No, what happens is it goes to provincial council in February, and it's adopted by the provincial council at AGM.
At the AGM, right, okay. We dealt with a number of motions, and I'm just gonna briefly highlight them. One of them was to urge the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and ICBC to increase the penalty for failing to stop for a school bus. Right now, I believe it's 3 points, demerit points, and about $170 fine, but the motion was to change that to 6 demerit points and a $368 fine.
And so that's advocacy work that we will,
Yeah.
will do as an association.
We also passed a motion that the BCSTA arrange a meeting with the Minister of Education to strongly urge the provincial government to immediately discontinue the practice of utilizing public tax dollars to fund and subsidize private and independent schools. And that motion was slightly amended to make sure it was with the exception of band schools, which are really operated by bands on reserves in the province, but are funded to a large degree by the Ministry of Education. And they should be, even though they're independent schools, they shouldn't be in that. And that any of the savings that, if the ministry actually decided to do this, that they be redirected back to the public school
And
system.
at the end of the day, that was tabled. And
Was
the
it
idea-
tabled?
Yes, so it's going to AGM for full participation from the membership.
Was that the one that was
Yeah.
tabled? Well, be prepared for that one.
Yes, it'll definitely come up to AGM, and the feeling for that one was that that is one that's worthy of the full assembly debating.
Okay.
Again, yes, yeah.
Just make sure I get this right. There were 2 motions that, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4 motions in the end that dealt with the whole issue of executive compensation, the executive compensation freezes, and the desire by trustees all across the province to make sure that they're lifted in some way. There has been a partial thaw in that principals and vice principals now may be able to get a slight raise, but secretary treasurers and assistant superintendents have been excluded from that. And also the very last motion on that included that it be fully funded by the ministry. So I think that's it. As to what I want to say. Oh, just one other thing. No, sorry.
Okay.
And then we also had a really, really good discussion on the afternoon of the Saturday with regards to the new committee that's being formed. And I'm going to ask Alan to explain the BCPC Advisory Committee to the government and how that's been formed, and then I'll talk about some of the other
Sure.
things that happened.
So, just over 2 years ago, the BCPC Board of Directors was replaced by a public administrator by the name of Michael Marchbank. And so that was in July 30th of 2013, because that's when I got fired. And then, and so now what's happened is that there's been there's been an advisory committee formed, and so there's 7 trustees who have been appointed on one to represent each of the BCPC regions. I will be representing the BC School Trustees Association and the Thompson Okanagan region. And then there's 2 members appointed by the Ministry of Education, 2 by Public Sector Employers Council, 1 by the superintendents, and 1 by the Secretary Treasurers. And the goal of the advisory committee will be to meet with the public administrator and the executive director of BC Public School Employers Association to give advice on a number of sector issues. So our first meeting is in Vancouver tomorrow morning at 9. And so there's not too much to report on, because that'll be our first meeting. And then after that, we've got an agenda with a number of topics that we're looking for discussion from the sector on, and then from there, it'll be a matter of probably going out within the regions to get feedback on the number of issues that the executive director and the public administrator are looking for input on.
And just to follow up, our discussion revolved around the issue of the introduction of the shared legal services, the again, the exempt staff compensation, teacher collective bargaining structure, the professional development needs related to LR's
Labor relations.
labor relations, right, and human resources, then a discussion about this new committee itself, and then the BCPC governance and potential structural changes. And I'm not explaining all of that because the synopsis is gonna go out, more
Yes.
information is gonna come out to all of you, so that we make sure that we all understand it, because we will be asked to be giving
Absolutely.
feedback on all these issues. So, that's my report, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks very much, Bill, for reports on all 4 events, basically. Okay, so under correspondence, we have the minutes of the Education Sector Advisory Council, and that took place in September the 29th. And they're just there for information, and you can see some of those were also topics that were talked about during the ministry day as well. If there's, that's it. So that now brings us to the public question period. If anybody has any, no,
None for
any
me.
questions over here? Yes, June?
Thank you. On page 9, number 34 of the superintendent's report.
Here we go. Let's see if this works.
Let's see, there you go, can you find it?
Thank you. Number 34. It says that you met with the principals to complete their September and October processes for reviewing codes of conduct with students, staff, and parents. So what are those processes? Like what?
Yeah, so annually, each school needs to go through, so it goes to the Parent Advisory Council with the principal's direction. It goes to classrooms, to all students, with the teacher and principal. And then it comes to me to say we've engaged in that process.
Okay,
And so at that point, that's when they start making notes for either revisions for the following year or for, that's the review cycle.
Right, so that's in, with regard to review, okay. Because I thought it had a different meaning, but it's
Okay,
just for reviewing the actual black and white text.
Exactly,
in-
we need to make sure we are all aware of what we say our code of conduct is.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
Any other questions from anybody? If not, thank you very much, and can I have a motion to move in camera?